Hello once again, Antony here with a review of Le Mépris, known in English as Contempt, which I also saw last night at the Kino Babylon and which was released on December 20, 1963. This film was directed and written by Jean-Luc Godard. It was produced by Georges de Beauregard, Carlo Ponti, and Joseph E. Levine. The cinematography was done by Roy Coutard. It was based on the novel written by Alberto Moravia entitled Il Disprezzo, which also means contempt. It was edited by Agnès Guillemot and Lila Lakshmanan. The music was composed by Georges Delerue and Piero Piccioni, and it starred the talents of Brigitte Bardot, Michel Piccoli, Jack Palance, Georgia Moll, Fritz Lang, Paul Coutard, Jean-Luc Godard, and Linda Veras. Now, I mainly knew Jean-Luc Godard through his loose adaptation of William Shakespeare's King Lear, which I also caught a review of this movie done by Kyle Colgren, aka Owen Citizen from Brows Held High. And from what I can gather in terms of Jean-Luc Godard as a filmmaker, he seems to have a very interesting and very minimalistic approach to how he tells his stories and to how he makes his characters relate to each other. And from what I managed to catch last night from Le Mépris or Contempt, it took time for me to understand what was going on in this film and to even understand Jean-Luc Godard's way of storytelling, which managed to leave me intrigued, befuddled, and at the same time quite fascinated as to how everything was pulled off thanks to him. The basic premise of this film tells the tale of Paul, who is a playwright, and his wife, Camille. Now, Paul is rather sick and tired of all the tastelessness that goes on between a lot of the movies that he's been writing for, considering his experience as a playwright, and he just basically wants to find a lot more artistic meaning and depth in the things he works on. He gains an opportunity to collaborate with a totally out there and rather vulgar American producer in the form of Jeremy Prokofiev to make a new film based on the Odyssey, where Ulysses has all of these trials and tribulations throughout his journey, and at the same time, while Paul manages to collaborate with the people behind this film in development, there are rising tensions between him and his married relationship with Camille. So yes, the story is a rather slow burn, but it's a slow burn that was nonetheless worthwhile watching. What I noticed about the differences between this film and the novel is that all the characters in Il Disprezzo are obviously Italian, considering that the author himself is Italian, and the characters in the film version of Contempt are basically of different cultures. You have the main couple, Paul and Camille, who are French, Jeremy Prokofiev, who is American, Fritz Lang as himself, who is German, and the secretary, Francesca, who is Italian. So this mishmash of nationalities and cultures make a very interesting yet very subtle culture clash between these type of characters and these people in general, thus making it all the more interesting to watch, and especially in terms of how each of these characters think. We have Paul, who wants to express himself in a pure, unadulterated, artistic manner. Camille, who is trying to understand the meaning of everything that's going on. Jeremy Prokofiev, who would love to make things a lot more out there and extravagant and nearly to the point of being shocking. Francesca, who acts as a mediator between the French characters and Fritz Lang and Jeremy Prokofiev, and everything that goes behind the scenes. At the centerpiece of the story is Paul's and Camille's ever dissipating relationship. At first, they start off as a rather happily married couple, What with Paul admiring everything about Camille and Camille making sure and even affirming that Paul loves her back. However, when the opportunity arises for Paul to take part in a developing film production of the Odyssey, he does jump at the chance, but also at the risk of getting himself into a lot of entanglements with his wife, being slightly involved with Francesca, the secretary, even though it may not have been a romantic one, and a budding relationship happening between Jeremy and Camille. So there are a lot of things happening in this entire movie, though the main centerpiece is basically watching how Paul's and Camille's relationship seems to be at first on cloud nine, but ends up dissipating slowly as the story progresses. As I stated before, the story is a rather slow burn to witness, but it is a slow burn that is nonetheless worthwhile, especially considering how the characters move the story along. The cinematography is also rather interesting. There are a lot of moments where there are nude shots in this particular film to show the intimacy between Paul and Camille, and especially their belligerent sexual tension with each other, even though they are fully aware that their relationship is crumbling apart. This is to show the type of eroticism that these two main characters have in spite of what is going to come between them. There are also a lot of wide shots being used and a lot of moments where the shots do take time for us, the audience, to get used to the surroundings, probably to make us see that this is what it all looks like from top to bottom, and it's just as slow of a burn as the story is, thus making some shots rather mesmerizing to watch, and even quite titillating to some people, and rather fascinating, especially when we go to the shots of the statues representing the gods, as if though it had some sort of artistic meaning and some type of grandeur that these gods have in the Odyssey, or rather Fritz Lang's adaptation of the Odyssey. The music is quite minimalistic, save for two string pieces that are mainly heard all throughout the film, and even though I would have loved to have a lot more variety in the music, I could forgive all that, as the music manages to show the gravity of how Paul's and Camille's dissipating relationship goes on throughout the story, and how the intrigue and how the drama builds up. The characters do bear a lot of interest. We have Paul, who is a playwright who tries to keep searching for artistic meaning, artistic genuineness, and is so sick and tired of all the rubble and the creative bankruptcy that he sees in a lot of movie productions. He is someone who tries to do his job well, and he is someone who tries to combine his career as a writer with the love that he tries so hard to give to his wife Camille. One can see that this is a man who is just trying his best to keep everything together, even though he knows that it's not going to last forever. And he is nonetheless a rather interesting character, mostly because of how he wants to have his vision happen through his writing, but kind of realizes that combining that and his declining relationship with his wife brings him in a sort of difficult position that he might not know what to do to get out of it. Camille is the polar opposite to Paul's pensiveness, as she is rather flighty and feisty and just likes to have her emotions get the best of her, considering how much younger she is than Paul. She is someone who manages to play with her emotions, and she's also someone who gets so sick and tired of how dull and how boring their own relationship is. She's just someone who wants to have a little bit of fun and adventure and a little bit more intimacy, but gets so dejected when she accuses Paul of having an affair with Francesca, the secretary, and even when Paul accuses Camille of having an affair with the producer Jeremy Prokosh, which then leads me to Jeremy Prokosh. He definitely steals the show as a charismatic yet vulgar American producer. What he managed to exude as a character is a lot of confidence, bravado, and so much guts to have his vision realized, and even to have it his way. He is just someone who is rather large and in charge in his visions, and at times he does feel very opinionated about what he wants to see in his film and everything about it. Francesca is the very professional and the very poised secretary, and she basically functions as the mediator between Paul and Jeremy and the other characters of this film, thus making her function not only as a secretary but also as a translator of what he or she is saying. There's not a lot of character to be found in her, but she's nonetheless rather likable in terms of how professional she is at her job. Fritz Lang, well, he's Fritz Lang, as he managed to be quite entertaining in a dry, humorous way, and he managed to steal the show as well, thus making him really enjoyable to witness every time he spouts out certain philosophical quotes in English, in his native German, French, and Italian. So overall, the characters are quite interesting, though it will take a lot of time to get into their skin as to understand what they really want and what their motives are. The acting is just as great. You have Brigitte Bardot, who managed to use her girlish great looks and absolutely wonderful physique to bring Camille's youth and impetuousness to life. Michel Piccoli managed to use his rugged, handsome looks to embody a certain melancholy in Paul, but also making him masculine and tall and rather virile in his own special way. And I also love that moment where both Piccoli and Bardot dressed in toga-like attires while they were talking to each other. I don't know if it was their choice or if it was the director's vision, but it was certainly a lot of fun seeing these two dress up as if though they were Greeks or Romans while having their conversations towards each other. Jack Palance, who I mainly knew in my childhood as the voice of Rothbart from The Swan Princess, exudes a lot of confidence, bravado, virility, and tallness to Jeremy Prokosh. He was able to steal the thunders of Brigitte Bardot and Michel Piccoli, and even a lot of the other actors involved in this film. What he managed to do as Jeremy Prokosh was absolutely amazing. Georgia Moll brings in a very professional and rather elegant portrayal of Francesca. Sure, her character is rather thankless because she basically finds herself trying to stay as poised and elegant as possible while functioning as the mediator between all the characters. But nonetheless, she was able to handle this role so well thanks to her elegance and her poise, which she managed to pull off really well. With Fritz Lang playing himself, he was definitely a lot of fun to witness. He was able to bring in so much dry humor, so much charm, and so much lovability to himself playing himself that I was completely enamored as to how he was able to pull it off. I wasn't so sure if this is an exaggerated version of himself, but if this was how he acted in real life, or if this was an exaggerated version of how he acts in real life, I have to say that he comes off as charming, witty, and really fascinating to witness. We also had such equally fine performances accomplished by Jean-Luc Godard himself, and Linda Veras, who played the siren. So overall, even though it took me a lot of time to understand what is going on with this film, it was still a ride that I found myself rather fascinated with in terms of everything that went behind it. From Jean-Luc Godard's slow burning and rather fascinating way and unique way of telling a story, to the fine acting accomplished by the likes of Brigitte Bardot, Michel Piccoli, and Jack Palance. Therefore, I give this film a well-deserved rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. Pacing issues aside, I could still forgive all of those because of how well this film managed to entrance me. It does take a lot of time to understand what is going on here. Nevertheless, the journey was rather enjoyable in its own special way. And for those of you who watched Le Mépris, whether at the Kino Babylon or any other cinemas that you watched this film, what did you think of it? Did you feel like the story was rather intriguing in its own special way? Were there some elements of the story that you could have wanted to see improve? Or did you feel like it was not to your liking? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in for another review. So until then, have a great day, everybody.